Brilliant. Well, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. For some of you, I know that you've not attended one of our masterclasses before, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background about Build Manager before we jump on with the rest of the evening. The company was founded by myself, Matthew, who's on the call this evening, and Ben. Ben's currently on holiday in Ireland, so isn't with us this evening. And between us, we've got over 30 years of property development experience, and we all also recently completed our own self builds. Individually, we had a real roller coaster of a ride of this and had a variety of challenges, which we will share with you actually over the next few months. We're going to do a series of masterclasses showing our self builds as case studies. So you can ask questions and find out a little bit more about us as well. And we joined forces because we shared a vision to create a platform that empowers self builders to build their dream home. We didn't find any other real support in the industry or any other communities that helped, and that's one of the things that we wanted to create. So how do we actually help you build your dream home? We do this in 3 ways. Firstly, we offer free masterclasses on all aspects of self-building, and we either deliver these in-house or with industry experts such as this evening. And if there's a specific topic that you'd like to learn more about, please just drop us a message and we will do our very best to get that sorted for you. Secondly, we're working really hard behind the scenes to onboard companies that are reputable and also who offer member discounts, such as Self Build Zone, who have joined us this evening. And as an example, we're able to offer access to trade prices at Howdens and up to 70% off RRP at the MKM Building Merchants for all of our silver and gold members. And the list of those partners is growing weekly. We've got some really exciting announcements coming up shortly, so do keep an eye out for that. And thirdly, we've got an online in-depth course providing options to help you navigate the self-build process, either independently or with one of the team as a self-build coach. So for anyone that would like to join us as a member today, we'll share the sign up link in the chat and you can have a look at the membership options and see if that might be for you. But tonight, as I said, I'm delighted to be sharing this space with Jake from Self Build Zone. He's going to be talking all things self-build insurance and building warranties. Our session tonight, the content side is going to last approximately 20 minutes or so, followed by a Q&A with an aim to wrap up at 8 o'clock. If you have any questions during the presentation, please pop them in the chat or just wait until the Q&A and you can raise your hand and have a chat with Jake directly. And please remember that this is a space for you to learn and interact, so don't hesitate to share your thoughts and queries in the chat as we proceed. And without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Jake.
Thank you, Jennifer. So yeah, my name's Jake Fitness. I'm here today on behalf of Self Build Zone. So I've been with Self Build Zone for just coming up to 9 years now. And who we are a self-build insurance provider. We've been in the market now for just coming up to 20 years. We are the market leading self-build insurance provider. We've also won a few awards as Insurance Provider of the Year for things like Build It Magazine and a few other publications like that. So I will be going over, as Jennifer mentioned, the site insurance and the structural warranties. I will be going over them in quite broad terms as it's quite a complex subject. So obviously we've got the questions at the end. So if you want to ask anything more particular to your project, please feel free to do so then. Firstly, what we'll be running through is the 2 products that we offer, which is the site insurance and also the 10-year structural warranty. And something that we don't offer, but what I really want to touch on as it closely relates to the site insurance is the importance of contracts and why you really need to do some research on them and get them arranged for any project that you're doing. So what is a site insurance policy? So site insurance is a policy designed to protect you as the site owner during the build. So what that means is it's covered from the start of the project all the way up until completion. So when you receive your building control sign off. So the start of the project will vary depending on what type of project you're doing. Your project could be you purchasing an unoccupied building and doing some very small site clearance works and things like that, or it could be actually starting the foundations of your new build. So as soon as you obtain any land or that property, that's when you really need to be looking out for the insurance. So if it's a new build site that you're doing and you purchase an empty plot of land, if it hasn't yet got planning permission and will be unoccupied for a period of time, you will need to purchase something called a landowner's liability policy. And what that covers you for is public liability for that land. If anyone's injured, whether it's a member of the public or you've got people coming in to do ground investigation reports and things like that, if they trip over a hole that's on the site and are injured in any way, you're then covered straight from the beginning. Really, the start date of the work and when you need the site insurance policy is when you actually break ground or start your renovation or extension. The main reason is the policy is designed to cover ongoing work, and the premiums are obviously based on that. So if you purchase this type of policy and you're not starting for a period of time, there's a lot of cover that you won't be using that you're paying for. We can arrange those other types of insurance for you. So you can contact us and get an idea of this type of policy, move on to something more suitable, but we'll be able to advise you based on where you are, what policy would be best for you. So quite often we hear people only really feel that site insurance is needed for new builds, but unfortunately it's not really the case. It's needed for any building project that you're doing that you own. So whether it's a small renovation, so just rewiring a property, fixing some plumbing, changing the internal layout or something like that, or full conversion, extension or new build, all of those projects would require a more specialist type policy, which is what this site insurance policy is. The site insurance policy is known as an all risk policy, and an all risk policy is a policy designed to cover every scenario that can come up for that topic. It's also a policy that's defined by what's excluded rather than what's covered because there's so few things excluded. So all of these covers here are covers that we offer as standard. So no matter what your project is, these items here are covered. So you've got the new works. So new works is anything that you're doing for the project. It can be as small as fitting a light switch, doing some general plastering, or doing some piled foundations or building of external walls, all of which are considered new works and would be covered. So if there's any damage or accidental damage caused during those works, a site insurance policy would pick that up. Now, granted, the existing structure wouldn't be relevant to every project. It's only really for the renovations, extensions, or conversions. But what that covers is the existing property that may not be worked on, or if you are doing small internal works on that structure. Well, the best example really is if you're doing an extension to your property, but not touching the internal of the existing structure anyway. If any damage is caused to that structure, the policy would pick up and cover that. So if there's a fire started during some of the electrical works in the extension and burns down the entire property, the site insurance would pick that up. And also if you're creating a new opening for the extension and the first floor is not propped up correctly and would either sag or cause cracking on the external wall, again, this site insurance policy would pick that up even though it's a structure that you're not currently doing the work on. We also cover public and employer's liability. So public liability is any damage or injury to any third parties. So that includes people and property. So if you have a delivery on site and a delivery man trips over a bucket that's been left laying around, then the public liability would cover their injury. If they have any time off work and things like that and look to claim off you as the site owner, it would pick that up as well. Something we see quite often, unfortunately, is if a site has site hoarding or Harris fencing that hasn't been secured properly, and if that blows into a neighbour's car, for example, during high winds, while their car insurance may cover them for the repair, the car insurance company will contact you afterwards as the owner of the site and look to regain any of the loss from you. And if you're in quite a nice area and someone's got a £50,000 car, that cost can be quite large. We also cover the employer's liability, as I mentioned, and it's similar cover to the public liability, but this covers the employees you have on site. Now, an employee would be any tradesman that you're paying, whether it's a fixed fee or a daily rate. They would be classed as your employees. You're paying them to be there. The most common sort of claim we have for employers' liability is for the injury of contractors. So if they were to slip on some scaffolding or unfortunately fall off scaffolding, which we have had in the past, they would look to claim off you as the actual owner of the site and being responsible for the overall safety on the site. And those claims can be quite high because not only do you claim for their loss of earnings if they're hospitalized for any period of time, but you also have to pay some element of compensation as well. And we offer up to £10 million of cover for that. So it's those claims can escalate quite quickly. We also cover things unrelated to the project and out of the control of anyone, like fire, theft, malicious damage, vandalism, and storm damage, like I mentioned before. So if anything happens overnight, well, no one's on site, no one's working, and you arrive to the site the next day to find it's been vandalized or worst case has been set on fire, and the policy also covers you for that as well. We cover all building materials on the site. So a building material is not just bricks or cement. A building materials is also your internal finishings. So things like an uninstalled kitchen, an uninstalled bathroom, or the windows on the property. So if they're delivered to the site and aren't going to be installed for say 2 to 3 weeks because you're waiting for the plasterers to come and plaster your kitchen, you have that risk there of them being damaged while they're stored on the site, especially with all the other tradesmen there and doing the works around the materials. Also, if you have something like a burst water pipe during the second fix works for the plumbing and it causes water damage to your kitchen, if you don't have any cover for building materials, you will essentially have to buy another kitchen. Is the only way around it. All of our site insurance policies also cover the legal expenses. So those legal expenses are if you have a legal dispute with a builder, and unfortunately that does mean you have to take legal action against them in any way, and that's up to £50,000 of the legal expenses. Obviously, at the end of any court appeal, you get awarded the damages. So the £50,000 is not the total amount you claim for, it's just the legal expenses. And for there to be a valid legal claim, you do need a contract to be in place with that builder, which I will touch more on contracts in a moment when we get onto those. So like I mentioned, all of those pieces of, or all those levels of cover are all standard. They're included within each of our policies. And then there's a few optional levels of cover, which include plant hire and equipment. So plant hire is anything, like you see there, a mini digger, but can also include smaller items like cement mixers, portaloos are considered hired plant. So if you hire one of those for your tradesman on the site, you would be expected to insure it while it's there. And we also cover site huts and residential caravans. So if you're doing any work to an existing structure or a full new build and you plan to move out the property and live on the site in a residential caravan, we can also include that within the policy. And not only do we cover the caravan, but we can also cover the contents of the caravan. So if you need to move your household contents in there, rather than moving it elsewhere to pay storage fees, it can just be included on the place you're staying. It's a good alternative to a standalone caravan policy, as if you're adding it onto a 12-month policy, you're looking at about £50 worth of premium, which is usually a fraction of a caravan policy elsewhere. So something we hear quite often, especially with obviously an extension or renovation, is I have home insurance, so I don't need insurance, which unfortunately that is not the case, but is a very common misconception. A normal home insurance policy would typically cover small minor works, which would be just the replacement of a kitchen or just the replacement of a bathroom, usually up to the value of between £15,000 to £20,000, depending on the provider. And some providers actually won't cover any work at all. So what you have to do is inform your home insurance provider that you're doing the work. They will then have the opportunity to either amend their cover or in some cases just completely cancel and withdraw the cover that they have on the property. And then that's why we cover the existing structure on our site insurance policy. So it should replace any need of having a home insurance policy elsewhere. The only thing that you have to bear in mind is to make sure your contents is adequately covered if you have high value items and things like that. If your home insurance policy company does tell you that they will cover the work, if it's minor enough for them to do that, one thing you need to make sure that they're covering is the materials that you have on the site, because they're not part of the building, so they're not cast under the buildings insurance, and they're not household contents, so they're not included in your contents policy. So ultimately, they'll need to have it as a bolt-on to their normal cover. And unfortunately, even if they do cover your work, they might not cover those materials, and therefore it's not really suitable for you to rely on your home insurance provider. Something we hear a lot as well is my builder has insurance, which is quite often the case. But the main purpose of insurance is to make sure you're protecting yourself. The same reason you'd be looking at a site insurance policy is to protect your own investment in the property. The builder would typically be looking to ensure their own involvement in the project. So what they would typically only have is public liability cover, which will cover them while they're on site and for something they're held directly responsible for. So if anything happens, like I mentioned with the fire, the vandalism, if anything happens like that overnight while tradesmen aren't on the site, their policy won't pick it up. And if you noticed any damaged materials on site, so we've had people find broken windows on the site, which have obviously been dropped by someone, but when confronting all the tradesmen, suddenly it's the first time they're hearing of it, and they've got no other provider, no policy to go through. So you have no choice but to go through your own policy, or if you don't have your own policy, to replace the window yourself. Some builders, it tends to be much larger companies, will have a policy called a contract works insurance, and that does cover them while they're not on site and covers incidents that they're not directly liable for, but they are few and far between because it's quite an expensive policy. And even if they have that, the one thing you need to check is that policy adequate? So it might cover everything you want it to, but might have a financial loss limit of £500,000, and your build is costing you £800,000, and suddenly you're left uninsured for the remaining £300,000. Now, even if you check their policy and they have that limit, when you actually sign them up to come onto the site, if they're there for 12 months, chances are they'll have a policy renewal in that time, and you have to rely on them either renewing at the same level of cover or actually remembering to renew the insurance at all. As unfortunately, if they forget, then your site is left uninsured. So yeah, contracts. So like I mentioned, they are needed in the event of a legal expenses claim, purely so we can see what your responsibilities are, what the contractor's responsibilities are, and it just makes the whole process of any legal action much smoother. Because by the time you get to any legal action, it's probably been quite a stressful situation, and the last thing you need is a conflict of what you're saying and what the builder's saying, and you have it there in writing exactly what you're responsible for. Contracts are also required in the event of an employer's liability claim. So contracts can just be their offer in terms of a quotation of what they're going to do for you in writing, and your acceptance, preferably in writing and signed, so we can see exactly what you've paid them to do. But that is a form of contract. And we work quite closely with a company called Contract Store, who are a specialist group of self-build lawyers. And they've created quite a few template contracts specifically for self-builders undertaking a wide range of projects. They offer a self-build pack specifically designed for new builds, which is 5 template contracts. And I believe the price is about £58.80. So it's not that expensive in the grand scheme of things. And what that will include is a contract for your architect, one for your structural engineer, one for your builder, and you essentially fill in the blanks. And the worst case you have with buying something like that is you don't use them and you've wasted £58. But best case scenario is they actually save you in the event of a legal claim. So that's really everything for the site insurance. The next product to go over is the 10-year structural warranty. So the site insurance covers you during the build, but the 10-year structural warranty covers you from completion and afterwards. So it covers you from the date you receive your building control sign-off and is 10 years from then. So even if you go out and purchase a warranty today, but you're not signed off for 2.5 years, that 10-year period starts in 2.5 years' time. And simplistically, the cover is much smaller on the warranty in terms of the number of things it covers. So it covers defective design, workmanship, and materials but all new structural works you'll be doing in the project. So that can be a defective design in the foundations, where they've not been designed deep enough, and therefore they do subside, and the only outcome is to demolish and rebuild the property. That would be covered. And again, with the foundations, if there's a wrong concrete mix used and it's defective workmanship, and again, it causes subsidence, and the only way to rectify that is to demolish the property and rebuild it. That's what your 10-year warranty would pick up and cover. The most common claim that we have is for water ingress. So it covers all the waterproof envelopes. So that's all walls, windows, doors, roofing. So if water gets in and causes damage, that is covered by the policy. The problem with those type of claims is they do go unnoticed for quite some time. And usually by the time they are then evident, you're then looking at tens of thousands of pounds to actually rectify them. So if you do have a structural warranty, they're just it's covered there for you in case something does happen. Throughout the warranty, we have to carry out our own inspections. So the standard inspections are what we call the technical audits. And what that is key stage inspections, which vary depending on your project and the construction of your project. So if you're undertaking a brick and block property compared to a timber frame house, the stages will vary slightly. But what we do is we come out, check everything's done to a good standard. There's no poor workmanship. Everything's done to the plans, and also that it's not likely to fail within the next 10 years, because ultimately that's the reason for the warranty, and the claim would come to us. So we look to find any issues as they're cheapest and easiest to rectify. So we would look for incorrectly laid DPCs, poor workmanship in brickwork, lack of wall ties, and lack of movement joints in brickwork, and things like that. So we can actually spot the problems and get them rectified as and when it's cheapest and the least intrusive to rectify them. Um, all of our warranty surveyors are actually fully qualified to do the building control service as well. So if you haven't arranged your building control yet on your project, you can have the one warranty surveyor do both. So you only have to pay the one fee, which is usually a cost saving, to do the building control and the technical audits. The reason it's separated and you do have technical audits is just purely because those inspections are slightly above and beyond building control, because we're not only checking are they compliant, but also they're not likely to fail within the next 10 years, which is not the purpose of a building control visit. Some customers do actually prefer to arrange their building control elsewhere, say through the local authority, purely so you have two sets of eyes on the site, so it's less chance of stages being missed or poor workmanship being missed, because we're not on the site every day and we only do go out at the higher risk stages. So there will be sometimes things that slip through the net. But if you do have the two inspectors there, there's less chance of that happening. So one thing that's really difficult when you're looking at this for the first time is trying to compare one provider to another, because it's not just based on premium, unfortunately, with this type of policy, because they are 10-year policies. What you really want to do is make sure that that provider is going to be there as and when you need them. So if you do have a 2.5 year build time, like I mentioned before, and then the warranty for 10 years after that, you've got to rely on the company that you've purchased that warranty with being there in 12 years' time, as and when you might need to claim from them. So the way to do that is all you need to look out for is the term A rated. And what that refers to is the financial stability and the ability to pay claims of the insurer. There was a insurer that went bankrupt. I think it was in around 2017. They weren't A rated, which what that meant was everyone that had a policy with them was left without a policy, and everyone that had mortgages and requirements to have a warranty in place had to then find a new provider as a completed property. And what that means is that provider can't go out and do their inspections that I mentioned previously, which is then a higher risk to that provider, and they will charge a higher premium for it. So it will then cost you more in the long run by not going for that A-rated insurer originally. But that's really all you need to look out for is A-rated. You don't need to really understand much else in terms of the insurance language, but that's the one thing you should look out for. So with warranties, they're not a legal requirement. the only time you may need a warranty is if you have a mortgage for the project. But something we quite often hear when speaking to people is that they don't want a warranty because they don't have a mortgage at the moment. They don't plan on getting a mortgage, so therefore, why spend the money on the warranty? Obviously, first of all, is it's good to have for the cover, purely for the fact if you have one claim, the warranty essentially pays for itself. And also, you've got to think about where you'll be in 10 years' time. Because if anything happens and you have to either raise funds on your property, if you're made redundant from a job, for example, you have to take some equity out on your property. Any mortgage provider looking at a house that's less than 10 years old will want to see a warranty on it. And if you don't have a warranty, you'll then either have to go out and try and find one then, or alternatively, you'll have to, well, you won't be able to raise any funds. Also, if something happens and you need to move or anything like that, typically a buyer is most likely going to need a mortgage. And if they need a mortgage, again, that mortgage provider is going to look for if there's a warranty in place. If there is no warranty in place and someone can't get a mortgage on it, you're then limited to cash buyers. Could mean your property's up for sale for a long period of time, or you may have to sell it for less than the market value purely because you're only open to those cash buyers. So it's something to really make sure that you're getting arranged as soon as possible. Something I forgot to mention on the first slide is with the warranties, they are cheapest to arrange before you start the work, purely for the inspection process that we have to carry out. For each stage we miss, essentially the premium will increase because it's a higher risk because we've not seen them. So as you're planning to start the work, usually about 2 weeks before, it's best to get your warranty sorted. Then at the latest, you can do it months before and have it all sorted and ready to go as and when you do actually start the work. That's really everything on the two, without going into too much depth. So just as a summary, before you start, really what we want to be looking for is arranging your site insurance either as soon as you purchase any plot of land or property, or as it comes to actually starting the work. Arranging your 10-year structural warranty to make sure you're on cover, and ready to arrange the inspections for when you start, and there's not a big rush that you're pouring next week and you haven't arranged the warranty yet. And also arranging the contracts with everyone that you're dealing with. It's best to get those in just as soon as you start any negotiations with people, just purely so if anything does happen during that negotiation process where you leave a deposit and they suddenly stop answering your emails, you've got something there in writing. During the construction, you want to just make sure you're getting your technical audits done. So we make you fully aware of each stage that we need to come out to site to inspect. That's included in the quotation documents. Also, once you've purchased it, the surveyor will contact you with a list of all the inspection stages. And if throughout the project you're ever unsure of when your next visit is, by all means, just call up and ask, and we can obviously let you know exactly when that would be. With the site insurance, it's a project-based policy, so you just need to make sure it's renewed, because if you purchase a 12-month policy and you do overrun, you will need to make sure that you purchase further cover for whatever time you need. We do send expiry reminders, but with the amount of emails you get during a project, they can easily get lost. So you do need to make a note on your calendar that if you're not finished, to arrange further cover. And then at the end of the project, you're then looking for your building control sign off. So once everything's finished, all your snagging items are clear, and you've had all your testing done on your property, you then get your building control sign off, which then enables you to get the 10-year warranty signed off. Because the 10-year warranty start date, like I mentioned, is the building control sign off. So you need to get that done first. And once that's done, we then carry out a final inspection, make sure everything's correct and finished, issue our final certificate, and then you move on to your normal household insurance. And if you have a self-build mortgage, at that point you move on to a traditional mortgage as well. You would usually need a structural warranty certificate before you can do that. So that's everything really to run through. So I think we'll move on to the Q&A now if anyone does have any questions.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Jake. That was absolutely full of useful information. So, yeah, really appreciate that. And it was a
No
great
problem.
point as well about the contracts from, I think you said contract store. I haven't heard of
Yeah.
that before, but that is very cost effective for basically £60 a month. to get them?
No, it's not a month. It's a set
Oh,
fee. So it's £58.80 is a one-off fee for, well, obviously however long you need them. So
that's brilliant. Well, yeah, that's really cheap. So thank you for highlighting it. I'll run through any questions now. I saw that David, you asked a question earlier on, which might have already been covered, and it was about how does a builder's insurance cover relate to our site insurance? Are you happy with the answer to that, David, or have you got anything else
No,
you'd like
that's
covered?
covered. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. Jeff asked, how long is the insurance policy? 1 year, 18 months?
so the site insurance, there's multiple lengths that we offer. So either 3, 6, 9, 12, 18, or 24 months. The maximum, unfortunately, is 24 months, but you can purchase 12 24-month policies in a row if you did need to, and it's a true self-build that you're doing. But yeah, they're flexible, and if you're not finished, you can purchase a 3 or whatever length you needed at the end.
Great, thank you. Saw Jeff nodding there. Is there anybody else who's got questions? You're welcome to pop them in the chat or come off mute. Oh, Dion's asked a question. Can you get a structural warranty for longer than 10 years?
You can, but typically for self-builds and small residential properties, they're limited to 10 years. For things like larger developments, blocks of flats and things, you do see some 12-year warranties, but they're usually only applied when the warranty has something called a defects period, where the builder or developer is responsible for the property for the first 2 years. So again, that why it's a 12-year warranty, the warranty provider is actually only covering it for 10 years because the builder's covering it for the first 2.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully that answers your question there, Dion. Neil's question is, can I get a structural warranty on just the garage and outbuilding if building those in the existing house's garden?
So typically the requirement is that any structures covered by the warranty have to be residential or have some sort of residential element to them. So if it's just a garage and the only purpose of that garage is to park your car or store tools and things like that, then unfortunately not. But if it will be a garage with an annex above, for example, then you can purchase a warranty for that. And again, with an outbuilding, it depends on the use of the outbuilding. If it's not residential, in terms of having someone sleep there, essentially, if it's not a bedroom or an annex, then unfortunately not. So if it's just a summer house, an office that you're building in the garden, typically you wouldn't be able to purchase a warranty on them. The main reason is the overall value of them doesn't really make it appropriate to purchase a warranty. Because if you pay £3,000 for the warranty for £15,000, whatever it is that you build, it might not be adequate. And it's just us taking money from you when it's not really fair to the amount of cover that you'll receive.
Okay, thanks for that, Jake. Neil says, okay, thank you. And Jeff's question, I hope I'm going to read this out correctly, Jeff. You might need to come off mute for this one if I don't. Do you want to answer it? Ask it, Jeff?
Yeah, with the assessment for the warranty, do you offer the full building control? So you get the initial building control documents from you right from the word go rather than the local authority?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so what we do is essentially remove the need for the local authority. So the only involvement that they would have is that you submit an initial notice to them to say that our surveyor is going to be doing the building control. They then have 5 working days to accept or reject that notice. The only time I've ever seen them rejected is because work started on the site before they've accepted it. But what they'll do is, have 5 working days to respond to it. If they don't respond, it's seen to be accepted, and then everything's just handled by our surveyor, including the sign off, so you have no involvement whatsoever with the local authority.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, no problem.
Brilliant. Has anybody else got any other questions? Well, in that case, a massive thank you for taking time out of your Monday evening tonight, Jake, for joining us. And thank you to everyone for joining us this evening, and hopefully see you for the next one.
Thank you, everyone.